This is an autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. The autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. So today, technically, we're going to summarize this autobiography and essentially create this into a biography. Please do note that the autobiography itself is not much of an autobiography. It only talks about half of Franklin's life. Probably a bit longer, but that's about it. So let's keep this going. So there's an autobiography and other writings. We're going to be talking about the autobiography today. This is our Benjamin Franklin. I'll be reusing some photos from the old biography I made before I read this whole book. In the autobiography, we find out everything about our young Benjamin Franklin. The fact that he was born in Boston of the United States of America on January 17th of 1706. As such, he even goes ahead and mentions all the accomplishments that he did, well, at least until the time. He himself is working at a printer, and he's going to go ahead and talk to these people about the printmaking things. By people, I mean us, the readers. And he talks about his early lives, with talking about him being an apprentice to his older brother James, who had a somewhat successful printing business. And it was during this time that he went ahead and started writing under the pseudonym Silent Dogood. He then goes ahead and describes how the fallout between him and his brother comes out because his brother starts to get into legal issues. And because of these legal issues, on legal documents, he has to transfer all the property and all the ownership of his printer shop all the way to his little brother, Benjamin Franklin. But underneath all that legal business, he himself is still taking control over the printing shop himself, going ahead and trying to get Benjamin Franklin to sign a contract that would make sure that he was in indentured servitude for several more years to come. If you don't like my accent, just please tell me. Continuing on, here we have our Benjamin Franklin himself starting to leave Boston, and then he decides to leave ahead for the New York. And because he's now in New York, he tries to go ahead and get an establishment with other printing presses, himself even going ahead and making a fake resume, but I'm pretty sure he didn't even mention that in the autobiography at all. Either way, he gets his printing job, and now that he's got his printing job, he goes ahead and starts creating the one of the greatest newspapers that existed at the time. Mainly because it's the greatest, because it was the only one in the local stores at the time. You all know this as the Pennsylvania Gazette, and it was here, that was in the Pennsylvania Gazette, that he published all the things that became very, very iconic towards his name. One of the few examples that you'll probably be familiar with is Paul Richards' Almanac. This is the 1739 edition, and he goes in and starts describing everything that he's been doing throughout his life, trying to tell people about his virtues and how they should go ahead and start working along their virtues too. And now it's around this time that Franklin himself goes ahead and starts talking about how he goes ahead and lives his life. He even tries to get a vegetarian diet, but I'll explain the context for this right now. In the book itself, he goes ahead and gives us 13 virtues that you must attain if you want complete perfection. These virtues are temperance, silence, order, resolution, frugality, industry, sincerity, justice, moderation, cleanliness, tranquility, chastity, and humility. It was with these that he went ahead and started going ahead and creating any of these things and all these virtues that he would go ahead and try to make sure that he would perfect. He himself has even created a schedule. This he himself went ahead and created to go ahead and check whether or not he has went ahead and did any of this. This is for his temperance, and he figures out that temperance he has never been able to do any of the days of the week, and if he tries to do one thing, that he will fail in one other. Tries to do it away on the other things, then he will fail in another, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. He finds out that if he lacks in one virtue, then he will go ahead and gain in another virtue, and vice versa for other virtues. It was around this time, too, that we went ahead and talked about his schedule. This is the very famous schedule that he has written in his autobiography. From 5, 6, and 7, this is morning, and he goes ahead and asks, what good shall I do this day? Where he goes ahead and talk about his rising, washing, and addressing the powerful goodness, his word for God. And contrive the day's business and take the resolution of the day. Prosecute, and study. aka he does some light work, he does some light hobbies and light studying in the morning, and then of course we have to go ahead and have the breakfast. It was around this time right afterwards that he does the menial work, 8 to 9, 10. For 4 hours he would go ahead and do some work, the hard labor intensive tasks that you would need to do throughout the day, whether it be factory work, or for his time at least, or whether for it was constructing for nowadays, or office work. And then for 2 hours at the lunch period he would read or overlook his accounts and dine with others. Afterwards, he would go ahead and for 4 hours he would work again, and then for another 4 hours he would go ahead and put things in their places, aka clean up. He would clean up the desk so that everything will be working and it will be clean and ready to go in the morning. Afterwards, he would put them stuff in their places, the supper, the music, diversions, and whatever things that he wanted to do to go ahead and rest. He seems to have a very big interest in music and diversions and conversations, mainly because iPads and digital devices did not exist at the time. Damn you iPad kids. And we have these, and then he of course has to eat supper. Afterwards he does this explanation of the day, whether he was done well in the day too, and then he does his evening question, where he goes ahead and asks what has he done well in the day. Afterwards he goes ahead and sleeps for around 7 hours. Now please note that this schedule itself is not something that you should go ahead and do one by one. It should be like one-on-one. It should be more or less something that you can adapt towards your own circumstances. You don't really need to sleep 7 hours a day. Some people can just sleep 6 hours. Some people need 10 hours, for goodness heavens, and 6 hours. Some people, personally, I sleep 8. On the rare occasions, 5 hours. It doesn't really need to take 3 hours to go ahead and do your evening work and stuff, but you do need to wash up and things. So yeah, you could pray. But it really does take about 8 hours to work and a 2-hour break in between too. This is very important. Breaks are very, very important. You should also put breaks in the middle of your works. Not like huge 2-hour breaks, but more or less like 5-minute, 10-minute breaks. Bye-bye video. And now that we're done with those kind of things, we finally get to go through the story itself. This time we have our Benjamin Franklin moving towards London. And while he's in the big L, aka London, the capital city of Britain and the head of the colonies at the time, we go ahead and see how well he does and fares with his son William. In fact, the first part of the book is addressed directly to William Franklin as private letters, which got included into the autobiography before he could even edit them. I'll explain why in the review video. Benjamin Franklin himself has gone ahead and decided that despite everything that has happened, he would go ahead and start writing everything he could do. He talks about his inventions, such as the Franklin stove, allegedly invented by him according to the book, and bifocals, including these little wooden paddles that he uses to swim. And now it's starting to become the eve of the Revolution. We have our Benjamin Franklin and several other people in the colonies go ahead and start testifying and harassing and essentially not liking one bit about the laws that are being passed about the colonies, taxing them because of the French and Indian Wars being one of the costliest wars of England, and probably would have been the biggest mistake that they've ever made. Maybe if they didn't really fight it, they could go ahead and still have gold in their coffers. Well, they still have their colonies, alright, but like their colonies aren't money pumpers exactly. They're not money printers, could they? So they attempted and assumed that the colonies are money printers, and then they requested that everyone pay gold coins towards them as taxes. They tried the Stamp Act, failed miserably. They tried the Tea Act, failed miserably, and eventually they just gave up on taxes. Fun fact, this is not written in the autobiography, but I have to mention this as a little disclaimer. They went ahead and raised the taxes from about like 3% to 2%. In fact, they didn't raise it at all. They decreased the taxes. But what they did raise is the strictness of how they went ahead and enforced these taxes. Whereas the 3% tax was more or less like, I don't care if you pay it or not. But the 2% tax is like, okay, you definitely have to pay this, otherwise there's going to be legal issues. We went ahead and paid all our coffers to go ahead and save you colonies. And now you're calling us the hooligans. Whether or not that is pretty much what happened. So Benjamin Franklin finally decides that Americans, as that they start to call themselves, I made that up. No, they didn't do that. In reality, they still consider themselves British. And so they went ahead and started doing everything they could do to try to get these laws passed. What did they do? Well, they tried to sign contracts. They went ahead and signed all these petitions to go ahead and prevent any of these things from happening, and to prevent any of the colonies to accept the British terms. No taxation without equal representation, as Thomas Paine said, who died penniless, even though he created the most best-selling and possibly the equivalent of the Bible for Americans. Unfortunately, this is where the book ends because he died before he could write the rest of the book, and none of it was edited by his editors, and they just published it. His publishing company, his library, his publishing company stuff just published the book. One thing that is mentioned inside this book that I didn't have time to talk about in the story was the fact that he went ahead and founded a bunch of services specifically for Pennsylvania and Philadelphia. He created the first public library in the Americas, in the colonies, essentially. He went ahead and created the first Philadelphia fire department, and he created the first institutions for Pennsylvania for college and educational institutions, and that eventually became one of the most resounding things that he's ever done. I will talk about some of these in the episode after this. I hope you guys enjoyed the summary of Benjamin Franklin. I will use my normal voice now. I hope you guys really did enjoy this episode. Please give a like. I hope to see you guys soon. Until next time, peace. Bye-bye.